What's good, everybody? It's Miss D. Welcome to the Teen Scene 10. As you know, I'm featured on the Terri Graham radio show. Yay! Bam! Let's shout out to T-Dionne, Miss Terri, and the Terri Graham radio, the host of the Terri Graham radio show. And I am excited to be here today. So we are continuing the My Graceful Journey, a poetic collection for the single parent. This is the My Graceful Journey edition of the Teen Scene 10, and I am so excited to be here and doing this for you guys. This is my CD, My Graceful Journey, a poetic collection for the single parent, and it has 6 tracks on it. And of course, my pseudonym or my stage name when I do my spoken word is BlackButterfli. So I know I usually come to you live as Miss D, but for all intent and purposes of these shows, I am coming to you live as BlackButterfli. And we've gone through so far 3 of the poems. We've gone through Anger, we've gone through the introduction, we've gone through Holding It Down, and now today we're going to talk about the poem titled How Would You Do? And it is it's a very emotional poem for me, because it's me talking to my daughter's dad and asking him if the tables were turned and I wasn't helping him take care of our child, what would he do? How would he do if he was in my shoes? And so, you know, it's really, it kind of dredges up some emotions for me, because I'm here 10 years later. I'm back having these conversations again. So this show is really important to me, and I just really want people to understand that it's not necessarily always about the finances. It is about being there. Kids spell love T-I-M-E, and they need consistency. That's the thing. A 30-second phone call, a text message, just something every day to say, hey, you matter to me. I love you, you matter to me. My daughter's dad tells her, you know, he loves her, and I'm sure he does love her. I don't ever doubt that. But he's sporadic in her life. So he bounces in and out. And that's damaging to a child. So part of the poem I'm talking about, well, how would you explain, you know, your behavior if I was behaving like you? How would you explain that to this child that we have that's hurting over here? You know, and people don't think about that. You don't think, the other parent who's bouncing all over the place doesn't think about the position that they put the custodial parent in. They don't think about it. You know, I'm here while she's acting out and she's upset because you were here, now you're here, now you're gone for 3 months. You know, and she's acting out in school. I'm the one that has to go up to the school because I can't find you. You're not answering our phone calls. You're not answering our text messages. You know, so I really just want people to think, when you co-parent with somebody, don't just think about yourself, because the parents that are not consistent, they are the #1 person on their minds. See, the thing about it is, pity is ego in reverse. When you are having pity parties, you are still the main person that's on your mind.
Right.
It's all about what I can't do and what I don't have and all this, that, and the third, and nobody cares about that. Your child don't care about that. They just want you there.
Right.
They just want you there. Your kid just wants you there. You know, so that's really what this poem is about. And like I said, this poem for me, and I've been trying to find the perfect time, the timing rather, to introduce this one, because like I said, these wounds right here, most of the other poems, it was cathartic, and you know, that moment has passed and we've moved past it and everything. But this poem right here, the subject matter has come full circle, and it's here again. And our daughter is 17 years old, getting ready to graduate from high school, and he's back to doing the same stuff that he did when she was 10 years ago. So, you know, it's just, and I hope that you guys understand that these poems are real to me. And like I said before, I'm still encouraged by these poems because I'm still in it. I'm still going through it. You know, and I pray that, you know, one day he will get it together, and, you know, before it's too late, because like I said, she's 17 in 2 weeks. So, you know, kids have their limits, and she's almost a grown-up now. She's almost an adult. So it's not like I'm dealing with a little kid anymore. You know, and she's healthy and happy. She's emotionally healthy. She's dealt with her emotions, and she's at that point in time in her life where she's like, okay, I'm done with this nonsense. You know, I'm just done with this nonsense. I have lived my whole life waiting for somebody, waiting for him, my dad, to get it together, mommy, and I'm done. And I have to talk her down off that ledge, because I'm like, no, don't be done yet. Don't be done yet. You know, you got a little bit more time. Just be patient. Just be forgiving. Just keep praying for him. You know. Now me personally, I'm done. That relationship is over. But I don't want my daughter to walk around with all this anger and sadness and all these wounds that her dad's inconsistencies have created in her life emotionally. And he's here for 3 weeks, and then he's out of her life for 3 months, then he's here for a day, then we don't hear from him, you know, for over a year. You know, that kind of stuff. That's hurtful to a child. You know, I'm not even addressing the child support thing, because, you know, I'm healthy and I can work. So, you know, and actually, even with the whole child support situation, my friends actually, they were the ones that actually talked me into getting to having a child support case open, because I was working 2 jobs. You know, and it was taking its toll on me. It was taking its toll on my health. You know, my daughter was starting to act out because I was always at work. And one of my friends, who was also a single mom, was like, Dania, why are you killing yourself? You didn't make her by yourself. So you need to get that same help caring for her and providing for her. And, you know, I was in that mindset. I want nothing he got. I don't want nothing from him. But she was like, girl, stop being dumb. And those were her words. She was like, stop being dumb. She was like, he is supposed to help provide for his child. And even the Bible has a verse. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, and I read, but those who won't care for their relatives, especially those in their own household. Those would be, if you have kids with somebody, those kids are part of your household, whether you actually live there or not, have denied the true faith. Such people are worse than unbelievers. Let me read that one more time, because I interrupted before. But those who won't care for their relatives, especially those in their own household, have denied the true faith. Such people are worse than unbelievers. So, you know, even the Bible tells you that there's an expectation for you to care for the relatives. Your children are your relatives. Your children are part of your household, whether they live in your house or not. They are your seed, which makes them your household. That makes them a part of your household. It doesn't matter if you know their social security number. It doesn't matter if the mama won't let you see them, which is some nonsense. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But yeah, I hate that. I don't care how mad you are at that other parent. Do not deprive your child from having access to their other parent, unless that other parent is physically dangerous. If that child being in contact with that parent endangers their life or your life in some way, then yes, I can see. If there's restraining orders and things of that nature, then absolutely, then I can see that. But if you just pissed off because he's not paying child support, no ma'am, no sir. That is not a reason to damage a relationship with your child. You've got to be the thinker in the situation. You've got to be the stability as the custodial parent. So you have to be willing to co-parent. Even if that other person is not doing what you want them to do, or you still have feelings for them, or you mad because they've moved on, that don't have nothing to do with your child. Put that crap to the side and parent. Okay, so I'm off my soapbox about that, but I literally hate that. I can't stand when I hear people say, oh, well, he won't let me see my kids, or she won't let me see my kids. What you mean? If there's no restraining order, you better petition the court system. No reason why that should be happening. And even when you take the classes at the courthouse, when you're going through child support, they tell you don't use your child as a pawn. Don't deliver messages through the child to each parent. The parents need to communicate themselves. They need to take the kid out the middle. Don't put your kids in the middle or your mess. And I've always banked on that. I've always done it that way. If I can't stand to have a conversation with him on the phone, I will text him until my thumbs cramp up. But we are going to communicate, and he's going to know where stuff is, or I'll leave a message when I know he won't answer the phone, just so that or I'll send an email or whatever, or send him a message to one of his relatives to let him know, or send it via mail, snail mail. There are so many ways that you can communicate with that person without actually having to interact with them, especially now in the technology age. So, I just urge parents, you may have a very difficult situation, you may have a very emotional situation, you and that other parent can't get along, but you need to figure out how to keep your kids out of the middle of that, and you need to figure out how to keep the communication going so that the child is not the one that gets the short end of the stick. Because at the end of the day, that's who's going to end up hurt, your child. And as a parent, that's who you are. Your main focus needs to be the care of your child. God has entrusted you with your children. Your child, parenthood is your ministry. God has entrusted you to be a good steward over a treasure. Your child is a treasure. And God has trusted you to steward over that. And you have to be a good steward. And letting your emotions rule you, and I can't stand him, I can't stand her. Kill all that. Stop all of that. Stop it. It just doesn't benefit the child. And that's what your focus needs to be. Grow up and put your conflict to the side, your personal conflict with that other person to the side, and deal with them on a level that is strictly about your kids. Take the emotions out of it. Point blank, period. You have to do what's best for your child. So, as I was saying, my poem How Would You Do is really special to me because I helped create the track on this particular poem. My producer and I were sitting in the studio, and this was the only one that I did not have a track for. He had created tracks for all of the other 5, because I have 6 tracks on the CD. He had created, we were good to go pretty much with everything else. And I didn't have a track for How Would You Do. And so I was sitting there and I started humming. I was just trying to, I had the headphones on. I was listening to the poem over and over again because we had already laid down the vocals. So I was listening to the poem over and over, and I started humming, and I started humming, and my producer got up and he was like, "Don't stop humming." He was like, "Keep humming." And he ran over to the keyboard and he started playing the melody that I was humming. And he's like, "Okay, keep humming, keep humming, keep humming." And he was just playing and playing and playing. And so until we finally came up with the melody. And then from there, of course, he added the drums. And so that gave us, because I wanted something that kind of had like a hip hop kind of feel to it. And so that's what I was going for. So, you know, it's really, it was just really an amazing process, creative process for me, because this track, this poem, right down to the actual track, is flowing from my soul. You know, so this one is really, really, all of them are special to me, but this one is really, really special to me. And it also, just, I don't know, it's just pretty amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and play for you How Would You Do by BlackButterfli. That would be me. And I hope you enjoy it. What I probably will do is play, I may just keep letting it play, because on my CD here I have the final version, then I have the acapella, then I have just the instrumental. So without further ado, I'm probably going to just let the first 2 go so that you can actually hear the whole thing, and then you'll be able to hear the acapella without the music.
So how would you do if I acted like you? Brother, if your foot was in my shoe, if the tables were turned on you, and you had to figure out each month how to do what you needed to do, while I held on to weeks of child support and didn't pay you. So, how would you do if I acted like you? If I said the night she was conceived was a lie, because I know I wasn't with you. Now imagine if questioning maternity was something I could do, so I wouldn't have to pay you. This world would be a bigger mess if mothers could just walk away and leave fathers under the duress of responsibility, having to create ways to make ends meet while we carelessly ran the street. Brother, how would you do if I acted like you? What if I left you to answer the questions of a hurting child? You try explaining to a 5-year-old why her other parent hasn't called or visited in a while. Now I know, although it seems wild, some women do walk away, but statistics hold that it happens far less each day than the number of men who should be responsible, but instead choose not to stay. So, how would you do if I acted like you? Brother, if your foot was in my shoe, if the tables were turned on you. So how would you do if I acted like you? Brother, if your foot was in my shoe, if the tables were turned on you, and you had to figure out each month how to do what you needed to do, while I held on to weeks of child support and didn't pay you. So, how would you do if I acted like you? If I said the night she was conceived was a lie, because I know I wasn't with you. Now imagine if questioning maternity was something I could do, so I wouldn't have to pay you. This world would be a bigger mess if mothers could just walk away and leave fathers under the duress of responsibility, having to create ways to make ends meet while we carelessly ran the street. Brother, how would you do if I acted like you? What if I left you to answer the questions of a hurting child? You try explaining to a 5-year-old why her other parent hasn't called or visited in a while. Now I know, although it seems wild, some women do walk away, but statistics hold that it happens far less each day than the number of men who should be responsible, but instead choose not to stay. So, how would you do if I acted like you? Brother, if your foot was in my shoe, if the tables were turned on you.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that one, and you can hear a little bit more of my testimony. I think I segued it pretty well in explaining to you where I was and where I am and how that particular poem came about. And if you notice, I did acknowledge the fact, even though I was specifically speaking to my child's father in the poem, I did acknowledge that some mothers walk away. Now, it's not as prevalent. Statistically, it's not as prevalent. But it does happen, and we have to acknowledge that it does happen. But either way it goes, whether it's mom that's not doing her part or dad that's not doing his part, that should not happen. You know, that just shouldn't be, period. It shouldn't be. No child should have to go through that. Because what it does to kids is it makes them angry. And they start feeling rejection, and then they start feeling anger. Frustration is unresolved anger. Rejection leads to unresolved anger. I mean, and when you have unresolved anger, that leads to so many strongholds and even physical ailments, mental health issues, things of that nature. And I'm speaking from experience, because while I was going through this whole process of trying to get child support from my dad, I started having anxiety panic attacks. You know, and I finally decided, okay, enough is enough. When I had a panic attack on 85 North trying to take my child to school in rush hour traffic at 8 o'clock in the morning, yeah, it was time for me to go see a doctor. So that's exactly what I did. And I went and I spoke with a counselor. I never was interested in, you know, getting a prescription of any sort, because I didn't want to medicate the problem. I wanted to resolve the problem. I wanted to cope with the problem and manage it. I didn't just want to medicate it. So I've never been on any kind of medication for my anxiety, even though it has been offered on, I guess, a couple of the visits that I had. They did offer it, but I just, you know, basically told them that they needed to teach me how to cope with the anxiety, which I did. And once I started, you know, learning and understanding where the root of my anxiety, you know, I was able to deal with it. Well, kids manifest anxiety from anger and rejection also. Right? You know, so, but it looks different. You know, it looks very different than an adult's anxiety. Kids' anxiety they may be very whiny, very cranky, they may cry a lot, they may act out. There are so many different symptoms that you can have, and that's something that as a parent you need to go and look up. If you notice that your kid is extra cranky, or in certain situations they just kind of freak out and it's illogical, completely illogical. Like for the longest time, my daughter was terrified of dogs, but she had never been around a dog, and she was only scared of little dogs. When I said illogical, I mean she was only scared of little dogs. She would get hysterical around a little dog, but she could see a pit bull and she would be fine, or some kind of big dog, and as long as it was on its leash with its owner, she was good. And see, that's when I got nervous, when I see the big dogs. But, you know, her anxiety manifested that way. You know, and she would get hysterical. I mean, literally hysterical. So, you know, we have to start connecting the dots between the events that are happening in our lives, the triggers for the events that are happening in our lives, and actual outcomes and how they affect our health. And mental health is something that we really need to look at in our kids, especially because as parents, you know, in the African American community, there's such a huge stigma with getting help with mental health issues or even acknowledging them. You know, if you go see a counselor or you go talk to somebody, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, oh, you need a shrink, oh, you must be crazy. No. Being crazy is having these problems and not dealing with them. That's crazy. But just like we are, you know, quick to go to the doctor for a physical ailment, you know, high blood pressure, diabetes, you know, some kind of injury, what have you, we need to take into account and have the same enthusiasm or the same urgency with our mental health. So that's my spiel on mental health. But, you know, back to how all of these behaviors are rooted in anger. Now I'm going to go to a Bible verse that speaks to fathers specifically. It's Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. And I'm going to stop right there. It says, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. So right there, it's telling, okay, and I didn't stop, I kept going, but you know, right there it's telling fathers, don't provoke your children to anger. And I would say that that's huge, because an absent father provokes his child to anger. That's why we have so many angry kids walking around here in this world today, because you have these absent parents, these absent fathers, and these kids, I wouldn't know my father if he walked up to me on the street, you know, and that hurts. And after a while, a child feels rejected and abandoned, and it pisses them off. It makes them angry because they feel like they had no control over a situation. Nobody likes to feel victimized. But when people feel victimized, a lot of times what it manifests into is anger. And anger can look like frustration. It can look like anxiety. It manifests itself in so many different ways. It can manifest in health issues. Again, you know, I'm just really adamant about that. That you really, really, really have to mind your relationships with your kids. You know, kids just want your time. They just want to know they matter to you. It's not all about what you can buy them. It's not about being Disneyland daddy or Disneyland mommy. And every time you see them, you know, you're buying them stuff. My child's father is that dude. I mean, last time he saw her, he bought her some Jordans. Then for her birthday, he bought her 16th birthday, as a matter of fact, he bought her a PlayStation. Prior to that, it was other things, you know, and I had to tell him, stop that. Please stop that. Every time she sees you, it does not need to be some extravagant gift. I don't want my daughter thinking that a man can just treat her any kind of way and then just give her some expensive gift and smooth it over and make it okay. I'm not teaching her that, and you're not going to teach her that. Because at the end of the day, a girl's first experience with a man is her experience with her father. Whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. But how her father treats her sets the stage for what she will expect and what she will accept from men. As years down the road. And I don't want my daughter thinking that a man can just treat her any kind of way and have no accountability You know, not keep his word, be inconsistent, but oh, if he buys you something expensive, then it means that everything is okay. Not. No. 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 That's BS. No. I want my daughter to know that she is worth consistency. She is worth the time that it takes to call on a daily basis to say, hey, how you doing? How was your day? You know, for someone to check on her and to see about her. She is worth it. And she knows that. You know, and I thank God that she's got my dad and my brother and her godfather who have been those men in her life to be consistent and to put her up on game and to teach her how men are and all of that. Because, you know, her dad hasn't had those conversations with her because he hasn't been around to do it. You know, so, I mean, it's really a thing where, plus, you know, I think about all the amazing things her dad has missed out on in her life. She is an amazing kid. She's an amazing kid. And yes, I'm biased, but I'm also honest. So I'm not that mama that just, you know, just thinks their child is made of gold just because that's my child. No, she really is special. And I'm not the only one who says it. I'm not the only one who sees it. You know, her whole life, every teacher she's ever had, she's pretty much been the teacher's helper, the teacher's favorite. I've never gotten behavioral issue conferences with, you know, concerning her. I've never had any problems with her being disrespectful or anything of that nature. She's been brought up to be a loving, helpful, forgiving person. But she hasn't been a person who has been brought up to accept people's crap. Now that's where it stops. The line is drawn in the sand. I will not have her thinking that she has to accept somebody's crap or that she has to always, that it's okay. I want her to hold people accountable. I want her to hold her dad accountable. And that's not being disrespectful. It's accountability. And so when she's having a feeling or she's feeling sad, I've always urged her, call your dad and let him know how you're feeling. Let him be accountable for how his actions made you feel. Or how this broken promise or that broken promise, how it made you feel. Let him know that it made you feel sad or it made you feel rejected or abandoned or whatever it is that you feel. Or it made you angry. Like you can still be respectful and hold people accountable. You can still be respectful and not let people treat you any kind of way. And I hope that other parents are teaching their kids the same thing. Because it's not necessary for us to go Love and Hip Hop on somebody and jump across a table or throw a shoe across a room or, you know, be all belligerent and end up with a misdemeanor. That's just stupid. We as parents have to give our kids coping skills. But if you don't have coping skills, then you can't give your kids coping skills. You know, so again, like I said in the last show, get some coping skills. Evaluate yourself. Look at how you handle things and how you do some self-reflection. Watch how you respond to your kids and in front of your kids. Just pay attention to how you do. You go on a rant and fuss and cuss and explode and tear up stuff and all of that? If you do, your kids are going to do the same thing. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell them, don't be like me, or don't do this, or don't do that. More of what our kids learn from us is caught than taught. I think that's how the phrase goes. Meaning, they do more of what they see us do than what we tell them to do. or what we consciously teach them to do. They do more of what they see in their environment than what has been consciously taught. And I was an educator for 7 years, grades from preschool all the way up to 5th grade. So I can tell you, I had a lot of students where they had some behavioral issues, and then once I kind of got a glimpse of how their parents responded to them, a lot of times it was like, oh, okay, I understand why he's like that now, or I understand why she's like that now. I understand, because I'm looking at how the parent is treating them, or how the parent is talking to them, cussing them out and, trying to whoop them right there in the middle of the classroom in front of everybody and all of that. It's humiliating. You humiliate your kids out of... I don't say don't discipline your kids, but you can't break their spirit. And that's just me. Don't humiliate your kid, because that just, especially if they're already going through things with their other parent. If they've already got a situation with mom or dad that relationship is kind of strained, please don't, think that humiliating them or publicly shaming them is going to make the situation better. If you choose to spank or not spank, that's not what I'm talking about right now. But I am saying that if you choose to do it, however you choose to discipline your child, let them keep their dignity. Don't seek to embarrass them or humiliate them in front of their peers, and then all the kids are laughing at them and all of that kind of stuff. That doesn't have a good outcome for your kid emotionally. And as a parent, you're responsible for their emotional health, and their mental health, just like you're responsible for their physical health and making sure that they eat and have clothes on. So, those are things that we need to really start looking at, is how the things that we do to our kids, custodial parent and absent parent, how the things we do affect our kids' emotional health and their mental health. That's extremely important. And again, this book right here, The Fatherhood Principle by Dr. Miles Monroe, this book right here is a life changer. If you don't have coping skills, or if you didn't grow up with a father, or you didn't grow up with a father who was a role model, someone that you would want to pattern, who gave you positive things to pattern what a man should and shouldn't be, and how a man should and should not treat the people in his life. I urge everybody to get this particular book right here. This is my favorite book, The Fatherhood Principle. It's my favorite book. Let me see what I have bookmarked here, because that may be the part that I really want to share. There's the purpose of fatherhood, and it talks about becoming a good father is not automatic. It takes time and effort. A father should present the fundamental qualities of leadership, responsibility, and accountability, as well as the capabilities of planning, disciplining, and loving. Fathering is a full-time job. As men, we must train, develop, and learn to be that which God intended for our families. So, that in and of itself is really powerful, that Dr. Monroe even said that. Because that is and actually that was the foreword, which was by Dr. John C. Maxwell. My bad. So that part was by Dr. Maxwell. But Dr. Monroe, the very first chapter, he just covers fatherlessness in the home, and And he goes on to say that an absent father can have an effect on a person's economic prospects beyond childhood. I want you to listen to the point of beyond childhood. It affects your dads are extremely important. Let me just say that first and foremost. And that's the one thing that I always stressed to my child's father. I used to beg this dude to just be consistent for her. Even if you don't want to deal with me, just be consistent for her. You know, I talked to a child psychologist, I talked to our pediatrician, and I was, expressing to them, look, I'm concerned about how his inconsistency is going to affect my daughter's emotions. I don't want her to be broken up emotionally. I don't want her to go through all of that. What do I need to do? So both doctors agreed that I needed to demand consistency from him. Either he be consistently present or he be consistently gone. And consistently gone means gone. It does not mean you're gone for a minute and then you pop back in and then you leave. And then you're gone for some more time and then you pop back in. No. Consistently gone is consistently gone. Because it takes a toll on a kid's, just their whole psyche. You know, it's really, really, really important that men understand how important they are as fathers. Like, that is a huge role. Fathers give kids their identity. Fathers give kids their identity. It's so important. That's why we have so many kids that are lost, because their fathers have lost their identities and they're not able to give their children an identity. It's really, 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 you know what? Let me stop before I start sounding like somebody on Twitter. But it is hugely important. You know, I can't stress enough how important fathers are. And I was looking for a certain chapter in this book where it just talks about what a father's role is. I'm just going to read this part because men are not only the foundation but also the anchor of the human family. To anchor means to fasten, to stop, and to rest. Anchor, secure, and bring rest. That's protection. When your family is at peace, your kids are protected, they're secure, they're provided for. They know that even if my daddy don't live with me, even if he doesn't live with me, he's just a phone call away. And if I call him, he's going to come. He's going to be there. And that is what kids need. It's what families need. It's really what women need from their man too. But I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about fatherhood, men and fatherhood roles. But women and children, we need consistency because it brings security. And once it brings security, we have confidence, there's peace, there's so many things that manifest just from having the security, knowing that that father is there. I'm a daddy's girl. And, growing up, no matter what I went through the teenage trials and tribulations with my dad, but at the end of the day, he was always there. And I never had to worry that he was going to abandon me. I had the security of knowing that I could express myself and I could express my feelings and say what was on my mind. And he didn't always like it, but it was always received. And you know, it's just a thing where I have a lot of confidence in the fact that I express myself. I'm very vocal. I'm very much in tune to expecting accountability from men, because my dad allowed me to hold him accountable when he did stuff I didn't like, or he did or said something that hurt my feelings. He allowed me to hold him accountable, you know, for those things. And you know, I grew up in a 2-parent home, so you know, my experience is a little bit different than my daughter's, but still, whether you, I mean, statistics are showing that kids, the real statistics are showing now that kids in single-parent homes thrive just as well as kids in 2-parent homes. You know, so, you know, but I'm willing to bet that those kids that are thriving in those single-parent homes, if their dad is not around, they have a father figure. They have a male counterpart that fills that fatherhood role. And it's a man who brings accountability, who allows for accountability, to be held, allows himself to be held accountable, and he's consistent. I'm willing to put money on that. Because those are the things that bring security and confidence in people, in children, and in women, and especially our girls, our daughters. Absolutely. You know, but it's just really important, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I don't want to babble on, because I've given a lot of information, and I've expressed a lot in this particular segment, because like I said, this particular track, How Would You Do, is kind of emotional for me, because all these years later, here I am right back in the same situation with this man not helping me financially take care of our daughter, and just pulling a disappearing act and being just ghost. You know, and I'm right back to dealing with those same emotions from my daughter, but this time she's not 6, she's not 7, she's 16, she's 17. And so it's having a different effect on her, and it's having a different impact, and she's now old enough to really understand and articulate her feelings and make decisions and choices for herself. So I'm having to kind of help her navigate those choices, because again, I don't want my daughter bound up in anger because of her dad's inconsistencies. I want her to take these situations and learn how to deal with people who are inconsistent. I want her to learn how to deal with it and cope with it and handle it and still be okay. You know, my grandmother always used to say, one monkey don't stop no show. And that's exactly how she said it. I know that's not correct English. I have a degree in English, so I promise you I can speak English very well. I'm qualified to teach it. But you know, one monkey don't stop no show. And so that's the thing that I really, really want everyone to get, because we have to teach our kids how to have those coping skills to deal with that other parent's inconsistency. You know, because those kids have to function, whether that parent comes back or not, whether that child ever meets that parent or not, that child needs to be able to function in a healthy manner and be able to be a productive citizen and not be this broken person that's got all these emotional issues and walking around with all this anger, and because they had all this anger as a teen, they've got a rap sheet from here to California. You know, so I just really, really, really want everyone to maybe once you get your copy of my CD, My Graceful Journey, a poetic collection for the single parent, and you can hit me up at perfectreflectionconsulting@gmail.com and request a copy, or you can also go on my Facebook page. I have a My Graceful Journey Facebook page where you can get your copy of this CD right here. The CDs are $10. If I hadn't said it before, I don't think I have. They're $10. So, you know, I'm just going to stop right there and thank you for joining me for this edition of the Teen Scene 10, the My Graceful Journey, a poetic collection for the single parent CD edition of the Teen Scene 10. And I'm gonna let the end of this track take us out, and maybe I'm not. I'm gonna let this take us out. I'm just gonna ride this one out, and thank you for joining the Teen Scene 10, My Graceful Journey edition. This is Miss D, and I'm signing off. I'll see you next time. Check me out on YouTube, VN Anderson on YouTube. Subscribe to my page. Go to Terri Graham or T-Dionne Enterprise YouTube page, and also subscribe to the Terri Graham Radio Show. And like us on Facebook. That's the Teen Scene 10, or the @ Teen, capital SCENE, the number 10 on Facebook. And again, this is Miss D signing off with the Teen Scene 10 from the Terri Graham Radio Show. Peace.